Hello ladies and gents, this is Michael Burhan from NerdGenius, FanboysAnonymous.com, and also Retro Unlim, of course. I want to talk today about something that's I kind of started a bit of a debate on my Facebook channel, and I thought I'd carry it on to sort of like YouTube and Daily Motion, of course, just to discuss with you guys about something that's it kind of holds dear to me at the same time because it's very political, and if this goes well, it might be the start of another segment on my YouTube channel. Now, I'm very passionate about politics in the sense that I believe that politics, like anything else, is kind of a broken system. From the get-go, we have politicians sort of playing people around from the top to the bottom, and I believe that there's a sort of a class segregation going on at the moment. So because of this, I keep up to date, try to go into the news about it a bit more, and focus on the kind of the positives and also the negatives in terms of the political spectrum, because you have both. Now, my whole thing about politics is that whatever government you've been in, you know, if it's a state congress or if it's a member of parliament, basically over here where we have like parliamentary MPs, I believe they have it over in Canada as well. I think they do. Now, it's a very different thing. The spectrum's rather broad, and no matter who you are, no matter what you do, you have these variations of Parliament select committees, basically. And one of the things that I've found quite recently is the Parliament that we've elected in since the recession, because we've been in a recession since I believe it was about 2010, have gone out of their way to do things necessarily that more favour them than favour basically the needs of the many. Because you know how the saying goes, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, whereas these individuals tend to sort of segue and do things on their own terms, which if you're into that sort of thing, that's great. If you're not, it kind of leads us into a bit of a situation. And so what I want to do is I'm going to try and get us out of making the same kind of bad decision, because I felt this decision was made on us. We're partly to blame for this, well, kind of fully to blame for this, because those of us who hadn't voted kind of threw our vote away, thus left us in a bit of a bind, whereas two parties were able to merge and become one, whereas the Lib Democrats, who basically bent over and had themselves analysed, decided to partner up with the Conservative Party, which are the Tories, the very left wing. And they decide that they wanted to do things, and as David Cameron, you know, when he was desperate for votes, went out there and tried getting all the chavs to kind of vote for him, he then basically stated that he was, you know, he was going to do things to help us and to get us through this impoverished I would say like I was going to say century, but the whole impoverished aspect of our society, by doing what most governments wouldn't do. And he tried to appeal to the masses for it, didn't work. And then when he finally got what he wanted, he decided, well, I'm going to make loads of cuts and make me very unpopular, but they need to be done. So that poses the question, really, because he has made all these cuts. He has cut benefits to the point where they are basically unlivable. If you think that you can have a career being on JSA, Job Seekers Allowance, and claiming housing benefit, you've got another thing coming. I don't believe it. Basically to the point where he wants to put people as slave labour. You know, he wants us to go out and work for £1.29 an hour, those of us who are on Job Seekers Allowance. And it doesn't work that way. If there's these jobs lying around where they can put people to work in, they really should be actually targeting those people to fill full-time positions that meet national minimum wage. Uh, but they don't want to do that. And then he made a huge, very bold statement actually, stating that he wanted to go out and stop the scrounging from the old and impoverished. I'm not even lying. I'm actually trying to say, I'm saying this verbatim here. He wants to stop the free travel cards that old people get, those who are over 60 or on pensions, who rightly deserve it because they've worked their entire life supporting this country. And he says they need to fend for themselves. He's also talking about getting rid of their allowances for their heating, because they have to fend for themselves, of course. And it leaves me to pose a question: that is there any other way that they can actually make those cuts? And by looking, there is. Now, as with any government, you can start in-house and do a bit of an in-house spring cleaning, because there's been a huge thing about expenses. There's been scandals going on expenses. And to be an MP, you really isn't really a full-time job, truthfully. But they get paid rather well for it. And a lot of them say it's because they need to attract a certain kind of individual for these roles who understand the role of being an MP. Now, for most who actually go out and do these jobs, they apparently leave their families for a certain amount of times a year, and they get given a second home, so an allowance, so they can purchase a second home, so they can live in London, near Westminster, wherever they move them to. They also get comped meals, so basically you get 15 quid per head, per meal, so you've got your breakfast, lunch and dinners all comped, which I don't understand, because with any job that I've ever been in, no one has ever given me a comped meal, which is another thing. And we'll actually talk about that, because I have been in a situation where I've got free travel and free meals. But when it came to the meal, I didn't choose to have those meals. I was forced into having them. And when it came to the free travel, I didn't choose the travel. They forced me to have it. And I'll get further into that in a second. Now, they also get free travel, of course, and they get free expense claims, so they can claim on anything that they need that they feel really meets their job. For some MPs, it includes porn from Sky Television for some weird reason. So that poses me the question of: do you think MPs should actually have, and it's a member of constitutions, member of parliament, doesn't matter where you're from, Australia, UK, New Zealand, do you feel that they should actually have these expenses? Do you think that they need these benefits, so to speak? My answer is no, because you've got a job elsewhere. You know, like, for instance, I'll give a prime example to Sir Alan Sugar. He has his own companies. He basically manages those companies, and he was asked to basically become an MP and work on certain aspects of like business and help create new jobs. And so he got another pay packet. It was more money, you know. You're on like 50. I think the lower end MPs get like 50 grand. The higher, the kind of, I think it's 50 to 100,000, and then you go up the ladder. So thinking about that, you look at it yourself and think, okay, so I've got this big money there. I've also got money that I earn from my other consulting job, and that I also need these extra perks that I get with the job for some weird reason. And you know, thanks to a friend of mine, she actually put down that they actually spend like 10 grand on acting classes, so they can be better public speakers. I don't understand this. They have press people, they have loads of different people with them to try and coach them to be better at their job, and it kind of boggles the mind. Now, every time they kind of mention that we want to make these tough cuts, and if they want us to lower taxes eventually and get the economy back on track, we have to keep cutting. You know, get the NHS down to one doctor per an A&E, and make decisions, like tough decisions of cutting departments down. Yet in-house, it's relatively been untouched. They haven't. I believe the only thing that they were actually looking at cutting or discussed about cutting was the free £15 a head meals, which they all decided to kick up a shit fit about, and no one's actually heard from again. That's worrying. It's extremely worrying because it gets us to the position where we kind of think that we're kind of be taken for a ride, and we are. You know, David Cameron himself keeps going on about scroungers and people living off the state, and if you look at them, the real scroungers are right in front of us. That's my opinion, by the way. I'm not going to state that this is a generalistic opinion, but as someone who is more of a, I believe in sort of socials and society, that a parliament is actually put together for the people, by the people. You're kind of taking the piss out of the people that you're trying to work for, you know. I've attempted to discuss on more than one occasion to MPs about certain issues that I had, where I had to book an appointment. They had a surgery probably once every 2 weeks, and their job's done. They'll go in and they have the whole Prime Minister's question time sort of thing and go, here, and that's it. You never really see them do anything else apart from the bold few, for instance, the cultural secretary or the shadow secretary and stuff. And they've got tons and tons of these MPs out there who are just sitting and earning money by bench warming. They're not doing anything. And it bodes the question. It still bodes the question. If you think I'm wrong, you have every right to think I'm wrong because it's your opinion. I want to create a debate and healthy discussion about this. So I'm going to pose that question to you. Do you think MPs should have benefits? The expenses, the free passes, the free cars, the free house, all these bits and pieces, and do you think it attracts the right people to the job? And as I've said, for me, that's an astounding no, because it's actually proven that this isn't their full-time job. They go out there, they run other jobs, which is truthfully a conflict of interest, especially if you've got like a guy who's governing over something like B Sky B, for instance, and then sitting on the board of directors. It doesn't work because they have to be unbiased, they have to generate an opinion, and they have to generate discussion in ways that actually help society. Where I feel that society is not being helped anymore, we're kind of been taken the piss out of. So there you go, guys. That's what I wanted to say, and then we'll leave it back to you. So what we'll do, once I get enough answers on this, in the next vlog, I'll give you your answers. I'll give you shout-outs. And remember, guys, to like, comment, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do apologise, I'm a bit bunged up at the moment. Been out in the cold too much. And that's pretty much it. And as always, guys, if you need a vote, if you want to make a change, it's time to vote. And I'm going to try and make my change by doing this, by going out there and voting myself. So wake up, London, and get to voting.